I'm gonna be reading some dark academia books, or I think books that I consider dark academia. I don't really know. I searched up on the internet books that are dark academia, and these were the books that were given to me. But the first book that I'm gonna be reading is Babel or Babel, however you pronounce it. And I've heard a lot of things about this book. I've heard that it's really good. At the same time, I've heard that it's written like a textbook, and I'm not a big fan of that, but I have heard a lot of good things about it, so hopefully I will like it. I have a feeling that I may not, but I'm hoping that I will like it. My basic rundown of Babel is that it's a bunch of foreign kids who are raised in England. They speak multiple languages and are very smart, so they attend the Oxford University, also known as Babel. In the school, they obviously study and make friends with their other classmates, and there's this whole like magical system of super bars, which I personally don't understand. And then our main character, Robin, also gets involved in this other secret society that kind of acts against Babel. But that's basically all I can say about this book. So far, I'm actually really enjoying this book, which I'm very happy about because I went into it very scared on whether or not I would like it. But I think from the first chapter, I was kind of already hooked with the story, and I'm interested to see how it's going to develop. I definitely think that it's a book that you need to read slowly though, because the story, the way that it is written, I feel like it's very slow, but I also think that to kind of understand anything, you really need to take your time and kind of just take in everything. I hope that I'm not gonna get bored like halfway through, because I have a feeling that I might. And I feel like it's probably gonna be either because of the writing or like the story slowing down. Look, I really didn't want to do this, but I have decided to DNF Babel. I really struggled with this decision of whether or not I should DNF it, because I felt like I could read it at first, but then over time as I continued to read it, I was just like, no, I'm basically forcing myself to read it. I don't enjoy it. My main issue with it right now is that it's very slow and it's so boring because nothing exciting is going on. Basically, we have these kids who are in school. All they're doing is going to school, they're studying, and then they're just hanging out with their friends. Like, nothing is really going on. And then we have this whole like secret society thing, which I think is like the most interesting part. But we barely learn anything about that, and so far like nothing has been mentioned about that after like the first couple interactions that Robin had with the society. And I don't know, I just feel like I'm really forcing myself to read it, because every single time I read like a chapter or something, I'm watching as the percentage bar slowly rises, and at this point it just feels like I'm reading it, I'm looking at the percentage bar, I'm hoping that, you know, it rises. And I feel like if I'm not enjoying the book, if I'm not into the book, then I shouldn't really force myself. The next book that I'm going to be reading is, I think, Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, and this is going to be the first book that I have read from her, because I've never read any of her books, but I've heard a lot about her different books from different booktubers that I watch, and I heard that she's a really great author, she's really good at writing, something like that. 6 individuals are chosen to be part of the Atlas 6, which is a secret society, and to actually be in this society you need to pass this initiation test, and all these individuals have superpowers. The issue is that they're all distrustful of each other and are making alliances, and then something happens in the end. Yeah. So I've just woken up, but I have been thinking about the Atlas 6 because I just started reading it last night, and I barely read any of it, but I just kind of wanted to look at some fan art so that I could get like a real grasp on the characters and what they look like. The book itself also has images, which I really like. I love it when books have art in them. But so far, this book is really interesting. It's definitely better than Babel. And I think something that I realized is that with Babel, there's not a lot of dialogue, there's just like a lot of thinking or describing about what they're doing, and I like how this book has a lot of dialogue and kind of just like banter between characters, and the powers they have and like the magic system is just really interesting to learn. I'm still at the beginning, so I'm really excited to like get more into it and kind of go into, I think, I don't know if it's a secret society or like what is going on, but I'm excited to kind of delve more into that. Guys, I came home from going out and my Kindle was in my bag, and basically my pop socket broke off, so it's like this right now. Luckily I do have another pop socket because I was like, oh, this is cute, I wanted to buy it, but I'm just gonna add the new pop socket on. I literally struggled so hard to get this off. New pop socket, the pop socket base. It looks very off-centered. It's off-centered. I have read a little bit more of the Atlas 6. I feel like so far not a lot is happening in terms of plot, but I think that it's very interesting to follow the characters because we have 6 different point of views from the main like Atlas 6, and it's pretty interesting to hear about like their powers and their background stories, especially because I feel like all the characters, they have secrets, and even when you read it, like I don't know exactly like their background story in full and like their power in full as well, like how they're using it, because some characters are like still hidden, especially from like other characters. There's this whole like alliance thing that is going on, which I find very interesting. I kind of want them to all be friends, but I don't know if that's gonna happen, especially because of like the different personalities and how like that may clash. I finished reading the Atlas 6, which overall I did really enjoy. However, the ending was very confusing, and this book either had a really slow plot or no plot at all, because it basically relied on the characters to kind of keep the audience interested in the story, because the characters were the main focus, and it was really messy. Like half of the characters, they hated each other, half of them had alliances with each other, but at the same time half of the characters were sleeping with each other. I honestly had no idea what I was reading. I think the like whole magical element and like the secret society element was super interesting, but like we barely got any of that because everything was just focused on the characters and like the whole initiation process and them like unraveling that. I probably will be reading the rest of the trilogy because of the characters. Like they're a mess, but they're kind of a fun mess to watch, and I usually don't like characters like that who are annoying and who makes kind of stupid mistakes. Like yes, they're flawed humans, but I don't want to read about that in books, you know? But this one is kind of entertaining to read, so I will probably read the rest of the trilogy, just not in this video. I started reading The Secret History. I wanted to give it a little taste test because I was afraid that I was not going to like it and that I was going to DNF it, and I was like, I cannot DNF another book in this video. But so far I actually really like it, and hopefully I will continue to like it as I continue reading the book. The main thing about it though is that it has super long chapters. Like this book, I think it's like a 500-page book, but it has like 8 chapters, and it's telling me that it's going to take me 2 hours and 28 minutes to read one chapter. To explain The Secret History, there's not that much to it. Obviously, it's a dark academia book. I think it's one of the first dark academia books that were ever written, but obviously it's about a secret society. 6 students, I think, are in this one class, and they are taught by one professor. They become really close to each other, and their lives are basically intertwined. So I've hit the plot point. If you guys have read this book, you know what I'm talking about, but it's basically the point of the story where the book starts to get a little bit more interesting, because I'll be honest, before the thing that happened, it was interesting, but it was also very slow and kind of boring, so I was considering stopping this book and reading another book. But now that I've reached this plot point, I'm kind of like, ooh, this is getting really interesting, and hopefully this book continues like this. Hopefully more surprising things happen, because otherwise I feel like it's gonna continue back into being really boring. I think what I liked about this was that you do get like little hints, but as like an audience you still don't really know what's going on until it's like fully revealed. And then I'm also like confused because I don't really understand what's going on. Like, what led you to make these decisions? I have no idea, but it happened. So I am bored of reading The Secret History. I am not even halfway through the book, and I just feel like I cannot read anymore because it is so slow and I basically don't have any motivation. So my plan is to read another book and kind of just flip back and forth until I finally finish reading the book. I think it had its interesting parts, and then after that it kind of just like went back to what it was like before, and I do want to finish it because I do want to know what happens, and I think that Henry as a character is very interesting, so I just want to read more of him. Don't really care about the other characters. It took me 4 days to reach, I think, like 46%. Like I haven't even reached 50%, and I can't anymore. But the book that I'm planning to read is Hellbent, which is the second book to Ninth House, and I read Ninth House last year, and I remember the ending left on a cliffhanger, and I remember being like, oh my god, I want to read the second book because I needed to know what happens and I need the second book. So I feel like Hellbent is the perfect book to read. I did it. I finally finished reading The Secret History. There was just a lot going on in this book that I don't even know how to explain. I will probably never reread this book because it was just a lot. I don't know, like I feel like it's a book that's gonna be in my mind forever, but it's just not something that I want to go through again. The beginning was very boring, but once you reach the halfway point, that is when like everything starts happening, and from then on everything is a mess. The ending kind of confused me, but at the same time it shocks me, and I think that this book is very unique. Like it's definitely not something that I ever read before, but it's just something that I feel is also a little bit hard to read, just with like everything that happens in this book, the characters, and just like I can't even explain it obviously without giving it spoilers. I do definitely think that it's a good book and I would recommend it, but it is a difficult book to read just in terms of like the pacing, the writing as well. It's very slow, but also the characters and the story itself, in my opinion, is a little bit messed up. I have started reading Hellbent, which is basically about this girl who is in the secret society in Yale, and basically she can see ghosts, and obviously secret society, a bunch of like rituals, stuff like that. Basically there are a bunch of murders happening and she is trying to uncover them, and then there's also something else that's happening which could be a spoiler to book number 1, so I'm not going to say anything about that. I am enjoying it so far, but I've been reading it like in between reading the secret history, so I would read like 10% and then go back to the secret history, and then I just decided to finish reading the secret history because I was like, I'm almost done with it, so I might as well. So far I do think that it's pretty interesting, but I don't really have any thoughts about it because I just feel like I'm still getting introduced into like the storyline for the second book. I finally finished reading Hellbent, which is great because I was really struggling with it as well, but I feel like I was just really checked out while reading this book. The first half I like read, but I didn't really absorb anything, and then the second half it got definitely a little bit more interesting in terms of like my reading. Like I could actually read it and like take in what was happening. So I did overall really enjoy it, and I'm very intrigued to read the next book. However, I don't know, I think at this point I was just already so over filming this video that I was just like not really paying attention to the books that I was reading in this video. I do think that out of all the books, I feel like Hellbent is probably like my favorite out of all of them, just because, you know, it's more focused on like a singular character, and it's very interesting because they go to like what is hell and stuff like that, and there's a bunch of demons and stuff like that, and I felt like it had an actual plot compared to like the Atlas 6, and it wasn't as messed up in my opinion as the Secret History. And as I mentioned, it only focuses on like one singular character, and I really like the other characters as well, such as Dawes, Turner, even Trip. He was really funny. Do I really like Talented? I don't really know, but I find his character very interesting. So yeah, I like this book. I was just a little bit like when I was reading it. I think this was the video that I struggled with the most out of all the videos that I filmed. It actually took me, I think, like 5 weeks or maybe 4 to film this, just because the books that I was reading were a little bit difficult for me to read, so I was just reading them very slowly. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and I will see you guys in another one. Bye!